Business Book Summaries.
The Lean Startup Summary by Eric Ries. Here's a common belief about startups today. Many think that with sheer determination, intelligence, perfect timing, and, most importantly, an amazing product, you can achieve fame and fortune. Another misconception is that ideas are like precious jewels. People are often afraid to share their ideas, even with friends, fearing someone might steal them. But here's the reality. Ideas are not as precious as you might think. In fact, I bet that most people generate at least 20 fantastic ideas during their lifetime that could potentially become successful businesses. And that's without counting outliers like Elon Musk, whose ideas have had an outsized impact. The real challenge isn't coming up with ideas, being brilliant, or having impeccable timing. It's all about execution. Now, let's explore 5 pieces of advice for creating a successful business from The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, a multi-successful entrepreneur.
Before we delve further, remember that we regularly share new content. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel Business Book Summaries and hit the notification bell for the latest updates.
Takeaway number 1. The Build, Measure, Learn Feedback Loop. 1. The Build, Measure, Learn Feedback Loop. Planning and forecasting are handy when your business operations are stable and the environment is predictable. However, startups exist in a world of constant change. Spending months planning and refining a product before releasing it is a high-stakes gamble. What if you invest all that time and effort into something no one wants? Many entrepreneurs have realized this and taken the opposite approach. They've embraced a just-do-it mentality. While Nike's advice to lace up your running shoes and just do it may work for physical fitness, it's often flawed in the context of building a successful startup. So, what's the alternative? The solution is the Build, Measure, Learn feedback loop. Too much planning makes a startup inflexible and risky, while just diving into action often leads to chaos. The key is to rapidly cycle through the Build, Measure, Learn process. A startup's primary goal is to discover what customers truly want and are willing to pay for as swiftly as possible. This means quickly abandoning ideas that don't make sense and doubling down on those that do. Despite the apparent sequence of Build, Measure, Learn, the planning phase actually works backward. First, you need to determine what you want to learn. You can do this by forming hypotheses. Here are a few examples. Commuters might want to order food from their cars. People may be willing to assemble their own furniture at home. People might pay for monthly access to unlimited online music streaming. In hindsight, these hypotheses may seem obvious, but before these companies proved them right, they were far from certain. After shaping these core hypotheses for your startup, it's time to test and either validate or reject them, which brings us to our next takeaway. Let's dive into the second takeaway. Everything is a grand experiment. All right, we understand the importance of quickly learning about what your customers need and whether they're willing to pay for your product. But how do you do this in a practical way? The answer is through experiments. Experiments are like tests you conduct with real or potential customers. The key to a successful experiment is this: watch what they do, don't just ask them what they want. The truth is, customers often don't really know what they want until they see it. If you show them a product and they get interested, congratulations. You've just gained valuable insights. Before we start building anything, we should ask ourselves if we even need to create a product yet. An experiment can be as simple as setting up a web page that says you have a product, for example, one that boosts your chances of finding a match on Tinder by 500%. Then, you drive some online traffic to this page using tools like Google AdWords, and see how many people sign up or show interest. Other times, you'll need a more structured approach. This is where the term MVP comes in, which stands for Minimum Viable Product. It's a concept borrowed from lean production, originally used by Japanese car manufacturers. In that context, waste means anything that doesn't add value for the company's customers. In the lean startup world, waste has a different definition. Anything that doesn't help you learn and validate your ideas is wasteful. That's why it's called a minimum viable product. It should only include the most crucial features and shouldn't be overly polished. The goal is to create something just sufficient to prove or disprove your hypotheses. Here's a golden rule. If you're not a bit embarrassed by what you're releasing to your potential customers, you might be overdoing it. The key is to test and learn as quickly as possible. Now, let's explore the third takeaway, different types of MVPs. There are various ways to create minimum viable products, MVPs, to learn what solves your customers' problems and what they're willing to pay for. Eric Ries provides 3 different examples. 1. The video MVP. Think of this as the teaser trailer of the startup world. One famous example is Dropbox. Drew Houston, the company's CEO, made a video demonstrating an incredibly user-friendly file sharing tool. He shared this video in tech-savvy online communities. The catch? The video showcased a product that didn't even exist yet. Still, it piqued the interest of thousands of people. This approach lets you gauge customer interest before fully developing a product. 2. The concierge MVP. Imagine providing a personalized, boutique experience to a select few customers. This is like giving them the concierge treatment. Instead of building a full-scale product right away, you focus on just one or a handful of customers. You work closely with them to understand their preferences and solve their problems. Once you're certain you've met one early adopter's needs, often through manual efforts, you can gradually expand to more customers and automate processes. 3. The Wizard of Oz MVP. Ever seen the Wizard of Oz movie? This MVP approach is a bit like that. Aardvark, a search engine for subjective questions like PewDiePie or T-Series, successfully used this strategy. Here's the trick. You pretend you have a sophisticated technical solution, but behind the scenes, it's operated by humans. In Aardvark's case, they had employees who answered customer inquiries manually at the beginning, before they were sure people really wanted their product. These different types of MVPs let you test your ideas and hypotheses without fully committing to building a complex product. They help you gather valuable insights and validate your assumptions before scaling up. Now, let's delve into the fourth takeaway, the 3 engines of growth. Once you've confirmed that your product provides value to someone, it's time to shift your focus towards growth. Eric Ries suggests that there are 3 different engines of growth that a company should concentrate on. It's best to primarily pick one and work on improving the key metrics associated with that engine through iterations in the build, measure, learn feedback loop. 1. The sticky engine. This type of business aims to keep customers around for the long term. The focus here should be on 2 main variables: the rate at which you acquire new customers and something called the churn rate. Churn rate measures the fraction of customers who stop engaging with your product. You'll find this engine of growth in businesses like Gillette, where repeat purchases are the norm, as well as in online gaming companies. 2. The viral engine. These businesses are all about spreading like wildfire. The idea is that for every new customer who joins, that person should invite one or more friends to join as well. Success in this kind of company depends on something called the viral coefficient. It's calculated as the number of new customers recruited, on average, by every customer who joins. If, on average, each customer attracts more than one new customer, your product will spread rapidly, like a virus. This engine of growth is used by social networks and multi-level marketing businesses, among others. 3. The paid engine. Companies using the paid engine of growth understand that advertising, in some form, is their primary way to reach customers. The two key metrics for such companies are CPA, cost per acquisition, and LTV, lifetime value. LTV is the difference between how profitable a customer is over their entire lifetime and the cost of acquiring that customer. This difference determines the growth rate of these companies. E-commerce businesses are a prime example. Eric Ries' mentor used to say, "Startups don't starve, they drown." What he meant is that startups have plenty of options, but figuring out the right ones can be challenging. The three engines of growth help startups focus their efforts on the most effective paths for their unique circumstances. Let's explore the fifth takeaway: pivot or persevere. A successful entrepreneur is not someone who gives up at the first sign of trouble, but they're also not someone who stubbornly clings to their idea until it sinks. To thrive, you need a blend of perseverance and flexibility. Sometimes it's necessary to pivot, which means making a change in your strategy to achieve the overarching vision for your startup. But how do you know when to pivot? It's a three-step process. 1. Establish a baseline. Start by creating a baseline using a minimum viable product, MVP. This is a simplified version of your product. 2. Tune the EMVP. Try to improve your MVP through repeated iterations in the build, measure, learn feedback loop. The goal is to make it better. 3. Pivot or persevere. Now comes the decision point. If your efforts to enhance the MVP aren't making a significant difference in your growth, it's a signal that you might need to pivot. But how much improvement is enough? Unfortunately, there is no fixed threshold. You'll need to rely on your intuition, which you'll develop with experience. Here are some common types of pivots. 1. Customer segment pivot. If the initial group of customers you plan to target isn't showing much interest, but another group is enthusiastic, consider shifting your focus to the more interested group. 2. Value capture pivot. Some companies shift from offering their product for free and, instead, generate revenue through advertising. This is often seen in businesses using the viral engine of growth. 3. Engine of growth pivot. If your assumption that your product would spread virally is proven wrong, but you discover that each customer's lifetime value is much higher than the cost of acquiring a customer, consider pivoting from the viral engine of growth to the paid engine. It's crucial to understand that a pivot is not a failure. Discovering what doesn't work can be just as valuable as discovering what does. It's far better than persisting with a failing strategy. In conclusion, the primary goal of a startup is to quickly figure out what customers want and are willing to pay for. To do this, you need to run experiments to gain validated learning about potential customers, and an MVP is often the starting point for these experiments. Successful entrepreneurship requires both persistence and adaptability. And remember, pivoting doesn't equate to failure. In fact, many successful startups have made significant changes to their strategies along the way. Good luck with your endeavors.
We're keen to hear your thoughts on our content. Feel free to share your opinions or recommend books in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel Business Book Summaries and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest summaries. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.